In this session, we're going to talk about clutch overheating. Basically, clutches overheat for two basic reasons. The first is an electrical overheat, and we'll talk more about that. So, two categories: electric or mechanical. Something is rubbing, a friction overheat. So, electrical and a friction overheat. We'll talk first about the electrical overheat. It's important, and we have a video on this, to check your system voltage. If the system voltage is too high, like any other electrical part, the coil itself will overheat. And we have a few examples we're going to show you in a moment. So if the voltage is too much, there's too much current in the coil becomes too hot, it melts the bearing grease, and the clutch fails. The second is voltage being too low. Again, like any other electrical component, there's a specific range that it has to operate in. If the voltage is too low, the clutch does not have enough power to do its job. And what we have here is a rotor and the armature. These are the two primary components that actually, when the clutch is engaged, they pull together. What happens is a coil produces an electromagnetic field that wraps around these little banana cuts, and it lights this up with magnetism. So if the voltage is too low, then we lack magnetism. And what happens is it doesn't draw to the armature hard enough, and as we're using it, it slips. That slippage creates a tremendous amount of heat, sometimes as high as over 300 degrees in temperature, and it's a friction heat basically. So the first thing we'll want to look for when there's a clutch overheat is the electrical. You want to check your system voltage and make sure we fall within the range of somewhere between 13.2 and 14.2 or 14 to 14.2 volts. Again, if we cross that threshold, we catch overheat. I'm going to pan to that have clutch overheat. You see this one at 12.4. Basically, this mower was running off the battery. There was a problem with the electrical system, and it didn't have enough power, and the clutch was slipping. That slippage was creating that tremendous amount of heat, melted the bearing grease in the race, and of course the clutch failed. This one, at 16 volts, this is something wrong again with the electrical system. On this mower, the coil gets viciously hot, and in this case you see it really failed. So those are examples of a burnt up clutch, and the root cause being something wrong with the electrical system. Now we have a video. It's called the system voltage problem, that I encourage you to look at and see if there's a problem with your electrical system. The second type is a frictional type. The frictional type is a little more complex. Basically, what we're looking for on your clutch is something that rubbed, or a column violation, and we have a video called the clutch column. I would encourage you to look at that clutch column video, and it'll explain how a clutch can basically overheat if we have, again, what we call a column violation. The friction one is a little trickier to find. We want to look at how it's mounted, the torque. We can create a frictional overheat by not torquing, not using a torque wrench, and using an impact wrench. What happens when we do that is we're creating too much force. It loads the bearings. The bearings become tremendously hot when it's in use, and of course it overheats the clutch, and that's a frictional a failure, if you will. It's also extremely important to understand that a clutch overheat is not a manufacturing defect. It is impossible for anything that we do or any other clutch manufacturer does to actually melt a clutch down, to burn it up. That's not something. It's always one of those other two, either an electrical problem or some kind of a friction issue that's causing that overheat. Thank you.